The unexpected Discovery Commander Vexler stretched his 6 tentacled appendages as his patrol ship glided through the outer rim of Sector 7. For 300 cycles, he had served the Galactic Assembly, monitoring primitive worlds and ensuring none developed technology that might threaten the established order. Today seemed like another routine sweep until his sensors detected something impossible. The readings from the third planet in System Sol 4271 made no sense. The world showed all the signs of a primitive civilization, barely past their industrial age, yet quantum fluctuations emanated from its surface in patterns that suggested advanced understanding of dimensional physics. Vexler ran the scans 3 more times, each confirming what shouldn't exist. A species that had not even achieved faster-than-light travel was somehow manipulating quantum fields with precision that rivaled assembly technology. His duty was clear. Any anomaly of this magnitude required immediate investigation. Vexler adjusted his course toward the blue-green world its inhabitants apparently called Earth. The journey would take 6 standard cycles, giving him time to review everything the Assembly knew about this species. The files were sparse and contradictory. Humans, as they called themselves, had been observed briefly 200 cycles ago and dismissed as unremarkable. They fought among themselves constantly, showed no signs of unified planetary government, and seemed more interested in entertainment than advancement. How then were they producing these sophisticated energy signatures? As his ship approached Earth's outer atmosphere, Vexler activated standard first contact protocols. His vessel's cloaking field engaged, rendering it invisible to primitive detection methods. Or so he thought. Within moments of entering Earth's thermosphere, his communication array lit up with incoming signals. Not just 1 or 2 random transmissions, but dozens of coordinated messages on frequencies that shouldn't have been detectable by the humans. The messages came in multiple Earth languages, but more shocking still, 3 were in perfect Vexilorian dialect, something no human should have known existed. The lead transmission, delivered in accented but clear galactic standard, made Vexilor's respiratory sacs contract in shock. "Welcome to Earth, Commander Vexler of the Galactic Assembly Patrol Fleet. We've been expecting someone like you for quite some time. Please proceed to landing coordinates being transmitted now. We promise our reception committee won't bite much. Impossible." His ship's identification codes were encrypted with algorithms that would take a primitive civilization millions of years to crack. Yet these humans knew not just that he was here, but who he was and why he had come. Vexlor's training had prepared him for many scenarios, but not for a pre-contact species that was already waiting for him with his name on a welcome banner. The landing coordinates led to a facility in what the humans called Nevada, a desert region that seemed inhospitable yet bustling with hidden activity. As his ship descended, still supposedly cloaked, Vexlor observed hundreds of humans gathered around a marked landing pad. Some held recording devices, others carried what appeared to be food containers, and a small group near the front wore formal attire suggesting they were government representatives. Most unsettling of all, several children had drawn pictures of his ship with remarkable accuracy, including details that should have been impossible to observe. Dr. Marcus Webb stood at the forefront of the welcome committee, his weathered face breaking into a grin as the alien vessel materialized on the landing pad. Beside him, General Patricia Hayes maintained military bearing despite the historic nature of the moment. They had spent months preparing for this day, ever since the detection systems had picked up the distinctive signature of assembly patrol routes. Humanity might not have faster-than-light travel yet, but they had something perhaps more valuable: pattern recognition and insatiable curiosity. The ship's hull shimmered and a doorway appeared where none had existed before. Commander Vexler emerged slowly, his tentacled form moving with grace despite his obvious confusion. His 3 eyes swept the assembled crowd, taking in details that contradicted everything he thought he knew about first contact protocols. These humans showed no fear, no worship, no aggression. Instead, they displayed something far more disturbing: casual confidence. Dr. Webb stepped forward, extending his hand in what Vexler recognized as a greeting gesture. "Commander, welcome to Earth. I'm Dr. Marcus Webb, and this is General Hayes. We represent a joint task force created specifically for this moment. Can we offer you some refreshments? We've prepared a selection of dishes based on our analysis of Vexilorian dietary requirements." Vexilor's translator struggled with the concept of refreshments in this context. First contact was supposed to be a moment of awe and confusion for the primitive species, not a social gathering with snacks. How do you know of my species' dietary needs? He managed to ask, his voice modulator betraying his uncertainty. General Hayes smiled, an expression that somehow managed to be both welcoming and slightly predatory. We've been listening to assembly communications for about 3 years now. Your encryption is impressive, but you see, humans have this thing about puzzles. Tell us something can't be solved, and we become absolutely obsessed with solving it. Your quantum communication network was particularly interesting. We learned quite a bit. The implications hit Vexilor like a meteor impact. If humans had been decoding assembly communications for years, they knew about the evaluation process, the compliance protocols, and worst of all, the methods used to control species deemed too aggressive or unpredictable. His mission had been compromised before it began. Dr. Webb seemed to sense his distress. Commander, please don't worry. We're not hostile, just prepared. Why don't we move somewhere more comfortable, where we can discuss this properly? We have a presentation ready that should answer most of your questions and probably raise a few dozen more. The presentation hall was filled with technology that seemed both primitive and advanced simultaneously. Screens made of simple materials displayed complex holographic projections. Computers that should have been decades from quantum processing were running calculations that made Vexilor's portable systems look sluggish. Most disturbing of all, a detailed map of assembly space covered one wall, with trade routes, patrol patterns, and political boundaries marked with alarming accuracy. You see, Dr. Webb began, gesturing to the displays. Humanity has always been good at working with limited resources. We couldn't travel to the stars yet, so we brought the stars to us through observation and analysis. We couldn't intercept your ships, so we intercepted your signals. We couldn't match your technology directly, so we found workarounds that achieved similar results through completely different means. A young scientist named Dr. Lisa Shen activated a holographic display showing Earth's technological development. What confused you, Commander, was that we developed technologies in a completely different order than most assembly species. While others focused on energy and propulsion first, we perfected information technology and quantum mechanics. We can't travel faster than light yet, but we can process and transmit information in ways that the assembly hasn't even theorized. Vexilor watched as she demonstrated a communication system that used quantum entanglement in ways his own species had deemed impossible. The humans hadn't just caught up to assembly technology. In some narrow but crucial areas, they had surpassed it. His report to the Council would need to be very carefully worded. General Hayes took over the presentation, her tone becoming more serious. Commander, we know why you're here. The Assembly sends patrols to identify potential threats and implement control measures before species become too advanced. We understand the logic even if we don't agree with the methods. However, I think you'll find humanity doesn't fit into your standard categories. She pulled up data showing Earth's chaotic political landscape. It's thousands of cultures, languages, and belief systems. We're not unified in the traditional sense. We don't have a single government or ideology. What we have is something more flexible, coordinated chaos. We compete and cooperate simultaneously. We fight and trade with the same nations. We create art during wars and wage economic battles during peacetime. This isn't a weakness, Commander. It's our greatest strength. The Galactic Ripple Effect 3. Weeks after Commander Vexilor's report reached the Galactic Assembly, the Grand Council chamber buzzed with unprecedented activity. Representatives from 400 member species had gathered for an emergency session, something that hadn't happened in over 1,000 cycles. High Counselor Thrain, an ancient being whose crystalline form had overseen the assembly for millennia, called for order as disturbing reports flooded in from across the galaxy. The situation had escalated far beyond a simple first contact scenario. Somehow humans had begun appearing throughout assembly space, not as invaders or refugees, but as tourists, students, and consultants. They arrived on merchant vessels, having convinced crews to give them passage in exchange for improvements to ship systems or entertainment during long voyages. Most troubling of all, they seemed to know exactly where to go and who to talk to for maximum impact. Counselor Zeph from the Altarian Federation stood to deliver his report, his bioluminescent skin flickering with agitation. High Counselor, in the past 20 cycles, Human consultants have appeared on 7 of our manufacturing worlds. They claim to be part of something called an internship program and have increased production efficiency by 30% using techniques they call lean manufacturing and just-in-time delivery. Our workers are actually enjoying their labor more, which goes against everything we know about optimal productivity. Before Thrain could respond, another representative demanded attention. The insectoid Kretek Queen's multiple voices harmonized in distress. Our hive worlds report similar infiltrations. Humans arrived claiming to be anthropologists and have somehow convinced our drones to try something called individual expression. Our 3 colonies have started producing art. Art. We don't even have a word for this concept in our language, yet our drones are creating it. The reports continued, each more bewildering than the last. Humans teaching advanced mathematics to species that had been calculating the same way for millennia. Humans introducing games that turned deadly serious warrior cultures into laughing groups of friends. Humans mediating ancient disputes with something called compromise, a concept that several species found both disturbing and oddly effective. High Counselor Thrain accessed the quantum network, searching for patterns in the chaos. What he found challenged everything the Assembly believed about galactic civilization. These humans weren't conquering or destroying. They were doing something far more insidious. They were making friends. Every species they encountered reported the same thing. The humans were genuinely interested in learning about other cultures, sharing their own knowledge freely, and finding ways to solve problems that had plagued civilizations for centuries. On Earth, the newly formed Galactic Relations Committee monitored the Assembly's emergency session through their quantum surveillance network. Director Sarah Martinez watched the feeds with a mixture of amusement and satisfaction. Everything was proceeding according to plan, though calling it a plan was perhaps too generous. Humanity's approach was more like controlled improvisation on a galactic scale. "They're starting to panic," observed Dr. James Park, the committee's chief analyst. "They can't understand why we're not following their predicted patterns for first contact species. We're supposed to be either terrified, worshipful, or aggressive. Instead, we're being helpful and curious. It's breaking their models." Director Martinez nodded thoughtfully. "That's because their models assume species develop in isolation until they achieve certain technological milestones. They never considered what would happen if a species figured out how to observe and learn from them before making physical contact. We've had 3 years to study their strengths and weaknesses. We know exactly what each species needs and what they can offer in return." The committee had worked tirelessly to prepare humanity for this moment. Instead of building warships or weapons, they had focused on understanding. Linguists had decoded dozens of alien languages. Anthropologists had studied alien cultures through intercepted communications. Engineers had reverse-engineered technological principles from observed energy signatures. When humanity finally made contact, they weren't strangers stumbling in the dark. They were informed neighbors introducing themselves after years of observation. Back in the assembly chamber, Commander Vexilor was called to provide additional testimony. His time on Earth had extended far beyond his original mission parameters, and what he had learned both fascinated and terrified him. He stood before the assembled representatives, his tentacles writhing with nervous energy. "Honored counselors," he began, his voice carrying across the vast chamber. "I have spent considerable time among the humans, and I can confirm that they pose no traditional threat to the Assembly. They have no desire for conquest or domination. However, they represent something potentially more disruptive: evolution." He activated a holographic display showing Earth's chaotic but functional civilization. Humans thrive on diversity and conflict resolution. Where we see disorder, they see opportunity. Where we impose structure, they create networks. They don't seek to destroy our way of life, but their very existence challenges our fundamental assumptions about how civilizations should develop. Counselor Marin from the Synthesis Worlds raised a mechanical appendage. "You speak as if you admire them, Commander. Have you been compromised?" Vexilor's 3 eyes focused on the counselor with unusual intensity. "Perhaps I have been compromised, but not in the way you mean. I've been compromised by ideas. The humans showed me innovations I never imagined possible. They solved problems my species had abandoned as unsolvable. They made me laugh, something I didn't know my species could do. If that's compromise, then yes, I've been thoroughly compromised. The chamber erupted in discussion. Some representatives called for immediate containment protocols. Others argued for diplomatic engagement. A few radical voices even suggested that humanity might offer solutions to problems the Assembly had struggled with for millennia. The debate raged for hours, accomplishing nothing but highlighting the very chaos humans seemed to thrive in. On Earth, humanity's response was already being prepared. They had anticipated the Assembly's confusion and fear. Instead of waiting for a verdict, they decided to make a proposal that would reshape galactic politics forever. Dr. Webb and General Hayes worked with teams across the planet to craft a message that would be transmitted directly to the Assembly chamber, bypassing all security protocols through methods the Assembly hadn't even discovered yet. The transmission arrived just as High Counselor Thrain was about to call for a vote on containment measures. Every screen in the chamber displayed the same message, delivered by a young human girl named Amy Chen, Dr. Lisa Chen's daughter. Her earnest face and clear voice commanded attention through sheer sincerity. Hello, members of the Galactic Assembly. My name is Amy, and I'm speaking for Earth's children, because this decision affects our future most of all. We know you're scared of us. We're different, chaotic, and unpredictable, but we're also creative, adaptable, and eager to learn. You've spent thousands of years building a stable galaxy. We respect that. But stability without growth is just stagnation. Let us show you a different way. Not better, just different. Give us a chance to be your partners, not your subjects. We promise you won't be bored. The message ended with something unprecedented, an invitation. Earth was formally inviting the entire Galactic Assembly to send representatives to a cultural festival planned for the following month. Not a diplomatic summit or military inspection, but a party. Music, food, art, games, and demonstrations of human culture in all its chaotic glory. The invitation even included personalized suggestions for each species based on their biological and cultural preferences. High Counselor Thrain stared at the invitation in his crystalline hand. In all his millennia of existence, no species had ever invited the Assembly to a party. The absurdity of it made him emit a sound his species hadn't produced in eons, something the humans would have recognized as laughter. Around him, other representatives were having similar reactions. The warrior species were intrigued by mentions of competitive sports. The artistic cultures were fascinated by promises of new forms of expression. Even the logical species were curious about something called puzzle rooms, designed specifically for their cognitive patterns. The vote on containment measures was postponed indefinitely. Instead, the Assembly found itself debating what to bring to humanity's party. Some suggested traditional gifts. Others proposed technological exchanges. The Kritek Queen's suggestion of a honey-based delicacy from their homeworld sparked a lengthy discussion about interspecies cuisine compatibility. As the emergency session dissolved into what could only be described as excited planning, Commander Vexler transmitted a private message to Earth. You've won this round, humans. Not through force or deception, but through something we didn't expect. Joy. The Assembly will attend your festival. May the universe help us all. On Earth, the Galactic Relations Committee celebrated quietly. They hadn't conquered the galaxy or forced their will upon it. They had simply offered something the advanced civilizations of the Assembly had forgotten in their pursuit of perfection, the simple pleasure of making new friends. Director Martinez raised her coffee cup in a toast. To humanity, the galaxy's most chaotic good neighbors. The festival would be a success beyond anyone's imagination. Within a year, Earth would become the galaxy's unofficial cultural exchange hub. Within 5 years, human consultants would be helping to solve problems that had plagued the Assembly for millennia. Within a decade, the rigid structures of galactic civilization would evolve into something more flexible, more diverse, and infinitely more interesting. But that's a story for another time. For now, humanity had achieved something remarkable. They had made first contact on their own terms, turning what should have been a moment of judgment into an opportunity for friendship. The galaxy would never be the same, and perhaps that was exactly what it needed.